So this is Yap session number 4, I think. So I'm 4 days late, I think. But I walk into my friend's house and it was Easter Sunday. So first person I see is his dad, and I say, Happy Easter. And he says, What's so happy about it? And I'm like, What do you mean? Jesus rose. That's what's so happy about it. He looks at me and gives me the look like, he's like, That's what they say. And it got me thinking about people actually don't believe that Jesus rose, which to me is crazy because the only evidence you really need is to ask, where is his body? His body has still not been found. I could tell you where Muhammad's body is, or well, maybe not me, but I'm sure the internet could tell you. Or I could tell you where uh Joseph Smith's body is. They could tell you where Buddha's body is. Whoever you want, any sort of religious figure, they could tell you where their body is. But we don't know where the body of Jesus is. So where did it go? Either Jesus rose, which is what happened, or something else happened. Now, for the skeptics, they might say, well, where's the science to back this up? You don't really need science to back this up. There's just like historically things that happen that you just can't deny. The Battle of Lexington and Concord, for example, happened. Now, I'm sure that you could do some sort of scientific thing where the battlefield was, and through science come to the conclusion that the battle did indeed happen. But you don't need science to know that that happened because it was written about. There were paintings about it. People have not relics, but things from that time, from the battle, that are in museums and things like that. One more thing that I forgot to add is that there's also detailed account from witnesses that saw the battle, and they tell you what happened, which is exactly what the Bible is, which is a bunch of eyewitness accounts of the people that lived with Jesus for like 3 years, telling you what happened, compiled together. So you just only need certain things historically to prove that certain things happen. So historically, you're intellectually dishonest if you don't agree, basically, that Jesus rose from the dead. Jesus rising from the dead is a historical fact. Again, for the skeptics, they might say something like, well, they moved the body, they stole the body. There's We could go through that. There's really only 5 things that could have happened. Number 1, Jesus rose. Number 2, the apostles stole the body. Number 3, there were grave robbers. Number 4, the Romans moved the body. Or number 5, the Jewish authority figures moved the body. Now, let's start with the Jewish authority figures, the Sanhedrin, right? They crucified Jesus. They didn't like him. They thought he was a heretic. So they obviously knew of his preaching. They knew he was saying he was going to rise from the dead. So if they want to keep him known as this heretic that wasn't actually the Messiah, wasn't the Son of God, why would they have moved his body to make it look like he resurrected, which would have ended up proving him right? So they're out the picture. That couldn't have happened. Next up is the Romans. Now, the Jewish authority figures portrayed Jesus and his followers as people who could start a revolution, who could revolt against the Roman government there. So, if they made it look like Jesus, what he was preaching was right, maybe the people would have revolted. So, why would they have done that? That's number 1. Number 2, I don't think the Romans really cared. So, I don't think they would have gone through the trouble to move the body It's not in their interest. They gain nothing from that. So they're out the picture. Next thing, the grave robbers. We're going to get to this now, right? The grave robbers, they could have moved the body, could have stolen the body. But why would they do that? They get no financial gain. They can't resell a body. Who wants a dead body? No one wants that, right? What they could have gotten money from is the linen and the fabric that they would wrap the body in. Now, if you go to the Bible, I have here with me my trusty dusty handy dandy Bible, right? We can open up. I have some Bible verses here written down. We go to John 20 verse 6 through 7. So, let's flip open together. Hopefully you guys are following along. And it says, "Then cometh Simon Peter following him, and went into the sepulchre, and saw the linen clothes lying, and the napkin that had been about his head." His head, that being Jesus, right? And the napkin that had been about his head, not lying with the linen cloths, but apart, wrapped up into one place. Now, what this is saying is that Simon Peter, right, the apostle St. Peter, walked into the tomb. He didn't see the body, but the only thing he saw was the linen cloths where they laid the body. And as I said, the napkin that was on Jesus's head, it was separated from the rest of the cloths and they were folded up nicely. Basically, is what they're getting at, right? So you're a grave robber and you need to get money by stealing the cloths and the linen, right? So you go into Jesus's tomb, and instead of stealing the cloth and the linen, you take the body, which isn't going to sell for much. And just to add on to that, before you leave, you fold it up nicely and separate the cloths from the other cloths. Does that make sense to you? No. So clearly it couldn't have been the grave robbers, right? So the last option is, and the most, I guess if you're like a cognitive human being, the one that could make the most sense, even though you're wrong, is that the apostles moved the body and kind of fake the whole story of the resurrection, right? So let's just keep in mind the historical context. These people are living in, you know, not ancient Israel, but, it was over 2,000 years ago. So they were still living under the law of Moses, at least religiously or in the society. They were still living under the law of Moses, right? So the law of Moses basically says if you want to if you want to be a witness to something that happened, you want to say that something happened. As a witness, you need two men to prove that there was a witness. So you have to be a man. There needs to be two of you to say that something happened. Where am I getting this from? Deuteronomy 19:15. So you guys can flip open to the Old Testament in Deuteronomy. It says, "One witness shall not rise up against any man, whatsoever the sin or wickedness be. But in the mouth of two or three witnesses, every word shall stand." So it's not going to stand by one person, it's going to stand by three, right? Now, I can supplement this with another verse from the New Testament in John 8:17. It says, "In your law it is written," talking about the law of Moses that we just read in Deuteronomy. "In your law it is written that the testimony of two men is true." So if you wanted to say that something happened and you wanted to look credible, what did you need? You needed two witnesses that were male. Okay, we have that point. We can move on. Cool. Now, keep in mind, you're the apostles and you're moved the body and you're faking the story. Obviously, if the words of two men are true, you're gonna want two men to find Jesus alive, or two men that to find Jesus not in the tomb, right? So let's see the two men that end up finding Jesus not in the tomb and later risen. Let's go to John 20:11. But Mary stood at the sepulchre without weeping. Now, as she was weeping, she stood down and looked into the sepulchre, and she saw two angels in white sitting, one at the head and one at the feet, where the body of Jesus was laid. They say to her, Woman, why weepest thou? She said to them, Because they have taken away my Lord, and I know not where they have laid him. So what just happened? So what just happened besides my microphone dying and me having to do this like a month later? Because, yeah. So Mary Magdalene, keep in mind, one person, and on top of that, a woman, not the two men that you need to make a valid witness to something happening. One woman goes up and finds the tomb open, and then the angels ask her, why are you crying? And she says, I don't know where they put my Lord. So again, if you wanted to make a story credible in that time period, as a Jew, you wanted to say that this was the Messiah and he did resurrect, and you wanted to fake that, you would have said that it was two men that found the tomb empty, because that would have made it more credible in that culture, because under the law of Moses, that's what you needed. But no, the Bible just tells it how it is. This one woman who stood at the foot of the cross as Jesus died, one of the only ones, because all the other apostles went into hiding. She was the one that found Jesus, or the tomb of Jesus, empty. So just, again, it's not, you don't need to think that deep into it. Just logically it couldn't make sense that they had made it up. Also, we have 12 apostles. They all died, besides John, they all died horrific deaths. They were like crucified and decapitated and skinned alive and boiled and this and that. Why would all these people die for a lie? Like, you can make up a religion and lie, and you could like make profit off of that, maybe with money or something, but they lived lives being poor. They were persecuted the whole rest of their existence after Jesus ascended. And then they all died professing the faith for nothing because they made it up. Like, does that make sense to you? So, again, this is all to say that Jesus did rise on the third day, on Easter, and it doesn't make logical sense for you not to believe that. So, yeah, he is risen. Hallelujah. That's it.